Hi everyone, this is Natalie with Champion of Coins Tarot. I hope that you are doing very well today. I wanted to come on to film a video response to Krista from Crochet Witch Tarot. She has a hashtag going around called Underdog Decks, and these are decks that we either rehomed and repurchased and reconnected with, or decks that we kind of struggled to find a place with in our collection at first, but have grown to really appreciate and love over time. I have 8 decks to share, only one of which I have rehomed actually, and that is the Aquarian Tarot. So the Aquarian Tarot is just one of my favorite Rider-Waite-Smith clones ever. It just has such a beautiful color palette, this great vintage 70s style. And I used to do a lot of readings with my immediate family, my parents and my little sister with this deck. And I ultimately gave my first copy of the deck to her when she was starting out and learning how to read tarot. It just felt right. And then a few years passed and we were on vacation together and I saw the Aquarian Tarot in a metaphysical shop. And I was like, you know what? I really miss this deck. This was just so beautiful and I want it back. So I got it back and it's just been such a pleasure to work with. I feel like this deck has a very grounded, very masculine energy that's kind of different from other decks in my collection. So it's just been really awesome to work with it and to reconnect with it in the last few years. And I'm definitely not planning on gifting or selling this deck ever again. Next is the Truth Seekers Tarot. So now we're in the category of decks that I kind of struggled with, but now I'm really enjoying. So the Truth Seekers Tarot is a mass market deck. It's also published under Wisdom Seekers, I think, in some countries. And I struggled to connect with this deck a little bit at first because I purchased it secondhand with no box and no guidebook. So I was really kind of left to my own devices to figure things out. But once I did kind of build up this intuitive connection with working with it, it really did blow me away. These are very pippish, but I really like how dynamic the backgrounds are. It just gives me so much to work with. And I also do feel like this deck, more so than some of my actual angel themed decks, is very much connected with angelic energy for me. So that's also been really great to work with and to kind of channel messages through this deck. So I'm a huge fan of it now. I'm not currently working with it at the moment, but I am excited to do so a bit later this year. The next is the Victorian Romantic Tarot Russian edition. Now, this deck is absolutely gorgeous. This is one of the first decks that I ever bought secondhand, but I kind of struggled with it. Sorry, I'm trying to like flip cards without hitting the tripod, such as life. So Victorian Romantic, absolutely beautiful, based off of the Rider-Waite-Smith. So it should be easier to recognize a lot of these images. Like this is very clearly Seven of Wands, right? However, because this deck is in Russian, I have just struggled over the years to get the messages across because it really feels like reading tarot in a foreign language. I do love this Hierophant card. Always good to see Jewish representation in a deck, and like just this image of the rabbi with like the day school kids. It just means so much to me. So I've always held on to it because this is a rare deck. This is very expensive now because it's out of print. And I'm glad that I did, because this January is when I really took a lot of time to just read with this deck every single day, to figure out its voice. It's very wise and it says so much. So I've really kind of been leaning into my intuition. Also, when it takes a while to get the download, I will reach and clarify with the Fallen Angels Oracle, because that deck kind of has a similar vintage aesthetic to it. It also has these really great, very deep keywords to it. And so that kind of acts as the translator between the two of us. And like once I get the clarifying oracle card from the Fallen Angels, suddenly like all of the information from the spread with the Victorian Romantic just comes pouring out. And that's been really lovely and very, yeah, just kind of like an enlightening process to really read with it and to work with it in that way. Next is the Enchanted Tarot. This is the massive 25th anniversary edition. And I'm not even sure if this is like gonna fully show up on camera, but I'm gonna do my best. So I really wanted this deck for a long time. It was out of print before this edition came out. So that's why I got it. The card size is like unwieldy. I'm still going back and forth on whether or not I am ultimately going to trim this deck or not. And at first, it just felt very cold. Like there wasn't any kind of voice or really any energy that I was picking up on. And so I put it away for a few years. But then in 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, I just felt a massive intuitive call to work with this deck. And work with it I did. Suddenly it felt like I was just really channeling messages from my ancestors, from deceased loved ones of mine, who were really coming through with very powerful and just really encouraging messages about how to deal with this difficult time, right? So this deck definitely kept me sane. It kept me grounded during that period of uncertainty, and I absolutely love it now. And I'm not actively working with it at the moment, but it did kind of inspire me to go down the rabbit hole and to look at Amy Zerner and Monty Farberg's other decks, and I love them. And I'm kind of working with their intuition oracle at the moment, which is also just really great. So I'm glad that I held on to this, because it definitely was one of those cases where the deck was really there to hold me during a specific period of my life, and I'm so, so grateful for that experience. Next is the Archetype Cards by Carolyn Miss. This is a Hay House oracle, and it's inspired by archetypes. So it has the archetype name on the top, light attributes and keywords, and then shadow attributes and keywords. So I struggled with this deck at first because I really didn't vibe with Carolyn Miss's guidebook. She goes a lot into soul contracts and like this belief that before we are born, our soul agrees to learn particular lessons in our lifetime. And I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, because, well, for a few reasons that I'm not necessarily going to get into. But I just feel like, you know, if you're somebody who has survived some abuse or trauma, being told that, oh, your soul chose this actually, can be really demeaning. So I put this deck away because I wasn't vibing with the guidebook. But then I started a new job as a software engineer last year, which has been so fun and I love it so much. And I just started doing a 1-card draw every day with this, and it was so great because it was spot on. It was accurate for the energy and the kind of role that I needed to embody at work during that particular day. And it was just like really blowing my mind. So I really enjoyed working with it in this very practical way of like, what is the energy around me? What can I really hold? How can I help other people? You know? So that has been really fantastic. And I do think that when I feel ready to, I'm going to go back and try to work with this deck as it's intended. but I'm kind of enjoying just forging my own connection with it right now, and just the one card system that I mentioned. So these next 3 decks are ones that I'm actively working with right now and really reconnecting with. The first is the Sacred Rose Tarot. This is another Rider-Waite-Smith clone, a classic 80s deck. I really love the art style of this, and I felt really connected to it actually when I first got it, but then when I tried to use it last year, like none of the cards made sense. The vibe was off. The energy wasn't there. It just felt like such a total disconnect, and I just like couldn't work with it. But I didn't want to get rid of it. So we've waited exactly a year, and now it is back in my practice and I'm working with it daily, and it's really blowing my mind just the depths to which we're able to go together. It's great for practical concerns, but also it has this kind of like ethereal spiritual quality to it that I'm still trying to suss out. But I am really glad that I gave this a second chance and that it's come back swinging. It's just really fantastic. And also like works really well with the Intuition Oracle, like I said, I was also working with. So actually I'm just gonna show that right now. Like this is the Intuition Oracle, also by Monty Farber and Amy Zerner. And so this is also an archetype deck because it has the archetype, but it has an affirmation for the day, which is so amazing. And so I have really been enjoying working with this in conjunction with the Sacred Rose Tarot right now. And also because it's like Amy Zerner just has such a beautiful, unique art style. It really flows well with her other deck, the Enchanted Tarot. So this one's not an underdog because I've loved it from the beginning, but it was mentioned enough times that it's like Beetlejuice. It's gonna pop up now. Next is the Celestial Tarot. This is a deck that I've had for a very long time, since 2016, and I really only ever use it seasonally, like in the late winter. This deck is inspired by Greek mythology and by Western astrology. It's really beautiful. There's a lot of great symbolism that can be derived because you have in the majors and in the court cards, you have the representation of both the classical figure from the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, but then also the constellation and kind of the alchemical symbols and the astrological symbols that card is associated with. So it's one that can go very deep and says a lot in just one card or 2 cards. But I don't feel really called to work with it all the time, really around the lunar cycle and kind of major seasonal shifts. But I mean, the energy of this deck is just really wise and really beautiful. And again, like taps into that celestial energy, just like the name says. So I think that I'm not going to put this deck back. I think that I am actually going to keep it out year round and to, again, use it during those major cycles because I feel like that is really what it's best for, kind of doing that ritual, like meditative seasonal work. And then last, but certainly not least, is another really unwieldy deck, and that is the Gorgon's Tarot. Oh my gosh. This is massive, and it is circular, and it's crazy and psychedelic and beautiful, and I just don't work with this deck very often because it's impossible to shuffle with. It's just too big. But this is another really great ritual deck and a really great meditation deck. This is one that really loves to be used to kind of draw a card before doing a meditation session or before doing a yoga session. It's kind of like a tarot oracle for me. You can also, if you were to do a larger spread, because it's circular, you could read with some directionality with reversals, but also, you know, if this is pointed towards the past or if this is pointed towards the future, then you can read the energy of the card with that kind of directionality to it. So I've enjoyed working with this deck, especially in the last week, and I am going to trim it. I got the deck's blessing to finally trim it. I'm kind of torn because I'm like, do I do a walkthrough and review now? Like, I don't have the deepest connection with it. And usually it takes me a very long time before I feel comfortable reviewing decks, because I think it's more valuable to be able to hear about people's experiences of working with it and what the voice of the deck is like, rather than doing a standard walkthrough, flip through card video. There's a lot of value in that as well, but like the artwork isn't enough for me. Like, I want to know how it actually functions, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I might do it, I might not. I might just chop it off and refer people to the timestamp in this video if you want to be able to see what it originally looked like with the black border. But I don't know, I'm really vibing with this right now. And so I want to put in the time and intention to make this deck really work for me, because it's just such a shame that it's been unused for so long. I really want to break out of that and to get into some new mental territory together. So that is a look at the underdog decks in my collection. Let me know if you have any of these. I would be super curious to hear about your experiences working with any of them. And do let me know as well if you have done a response to this tag, because I would love to watch your response as well. As always, I am sending you much love and much light along your own journey. Bye.